on, but just give me a heads up if the background noise is too much, and I'll see if I can figure something else out.
All right,
Because it's
got
probably
you.
gonna, I'm probably just gonna let it carry over like in my car, unless I have to put my headphones back in while I'm driving. So just
Yeah,
let me know.
I got you. Welcome everybody to the AMLoB Podcast. Um, this week is me and Crips. We may have a few more appearances, but at the moment it's just me and Crips.
Yo,
You know, old faithful, traditional, the traditional
the
two.
dynamic
Um,
duo
exactly.
back in
So I
action.
mean, so we're gonna probably just cover just some quick stuff about the league. Madden. Some quick stuff about like current cycle. Just how the playoffs went um, versus what was expected. Just a few things as far as like what we expect of the final season. And then we'll probably get into more of the Madden 20 talk from, EA Play impressions, things like that. So we'll get into all of that. Show shouldn't be too long, probably about an hour runtime, maybe a little shorter depending on how that goes. But sometimes me and Chris will start talking about some things that we like to see after what we saw from EA Play, and we can carry that for a minute. So
that
uh,
we are the dynamic duo for a reason.
yeah, so yeah,
Uh,
as y'all probably heard the last bit of it, Crips may be getting in his car and driving, so and there's no telling exactly how the audio will be there, but
somebody
we're
just
gonna,
tag chat or something and let me know, and I'll if it's too bad, and we'll figure something out.
yeah, and
So,
yes, I will be advancing people. So,
um, but
but
yeah, it's good to be on in a more overall full capacity this week. I kind of had like a little 5 minute cameo last week, and so I am back for right now. So how's everybody doing? I will pop in and read that in a short little bit, but yeah, the playoffs. You want to get started on a playoffs talk, and I'll bounce off of you in a second.
yeah, that's cool with me. So I mean, playoffs. The playoffs had they it was really interesting. Um, you know, I mean, I think me and Tyler called it pretty much. We both called, Broncos Rams Super Bowl. I believe he went. Yeah, I believe he's the one that chose Dicey, and uh, I
You
went
went
with
Emmons
with
or Joe.
yeah. So it was it was really good. The games were really good, especially Dicey's road. A lot of those games were closer till the end. I think the game with Joe was a really good one. He had, I think, if he feeds Saquon more, that outcome probably is a little different.
Yeah, you could say
But
that.
but Saquon broke off two huge runs. One of them went for six, and he only finished the game with 8 carries. And I mean, Dicey played a lot of ball control, but still, even late in that game, whenever Joe had those opportunities, he didn't exactly capitalize because he just wasn't giving the ball to Saquon, not in the passing game, not running the ball. So it was a little different of a feel as far as what happened there.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure about why it played out the way it did because he rode Saquon to the playoffs. I mean, Saquon had I think his best season in I think it might have been his top season he's ever really had, especially that yard per carry number he racked up. And
Yeah,
he was an afterthought in the playoffs, and that's what kind of sat odd with me when looking at everything. I didn't have a chance to actually watch a ton of the game, but going back hearing what people were saying, and then looking at the box score, I was really surprised he had as few touches as he did, because he was such a big part of Joe's offense all the way through and through the entire season. And then just
Yeah, and I think that's the most confusing thing for me as well, is that especially somebody that played him during the season, um,
because it
Saquon
was
was such a huge part of his offense, like in the passing game and the running game. And I feel like he didn't necessarily
maximize on
take
that.
advantage of the fact that Saquon is just really that good. So,
Yeah,
um,
my thing too was the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, it was like a 15-9 game at the end, and
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Again, I wasn't watching much of the game, but I can't imagine there was any type of game flow where in a 6-point game you don't feel like you can run the ball until there's 2 minutes left in the game, and you think, okay, now I kind of have to throw it. I mean, just me in
yeah,
that kind of a game, I'm gonna try and ride the run game if I see it's that kind of a defensive game, especially if my offense all year has been predicated on the run game. But again,
yeah.
that's just me. But that was kind of what caught me off guard looking at it, as to why he only
Yeah,
had.
it was a little odd, just a little funny. Personally, I think I think it was just, playoffs is a little bit different of an atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and then
A
late
little
in
more
games
pressure.
sometimes, yeah, late in games sometimes, you feel like you kind of got to like throw to get back into it, because running the ball is going to take too much time. But when you have a talent like Saquon, who has just that big playability, it's kind of got to ride it. Um,
Yeah, you live and you learn.
but yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Unfortunately,
agree.
unfortunately, it was a playoff game, but you live and you learn. Elsa, out, sweetie, go on. But yeah, no, you
Yeah.
live and you
Um.
sorry about that. You learn and
Okay.
you adapt, and I think Joe will do that. So I'm not too concerned long term, but I think that's one of those things, especially
Yeah.
with him not having a ton of playoff experience this cycle, might have just been the pressure to want to succeed, and maybe try and throw some wrinkles into the game plan of like, oh well, maybe he's expecting me to run the ball, so I should try and throw it a little more. I've definitely been the on the faulty end of things like that myself more than once or twice or 10 times. So
Go ahead.
I've done,
Tell
I've done.
everybody, Crips, about your playoff woes.
Whoa, 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 whoa there, whoa's there. But yeah, that's we're not gonna look at my playoff resume, but I point is, it happens, and
Trust me,
yeah,
I understand. At least you're
okay.
getting there. I'm missing at 10-6. So
I mean, you got the Super Bowl trophies I don't have, so there's a balance to it. But yeah, I think Joe. Point of the ramble. I think Joe will bounce back. So I expect Saquon to go off again next season. So
yeah, and I mean, then Dicey had a close one with Emmons in
yeah,
the
it was all about
conference
the defensive,
championship.
all about the NFC playoff defensive slugfests.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
that was his mo, and he won them. So
yeah. It was the NFC this year had some really it was a real grind for a lot of these games.
that's
Definitely
an
a grind for a
understatement.
lot of these games.
That's
Um,
yeah, that's. I mean, it was some old fashioned throwback '70s football for the most part.
yeah, yeah. I
I don't
mean,
know. I
yeah,
don't know
you're
how else
talking
to
about
describe it.
finals with like 13-12, 17-13, 12-9. Like, yeah, there's some really close ones here.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's just the NFC. Of course, in the AFC there was Unfortunately, Corey had to take a forced loss, but I mean, fortunately for him, he's on vacation. Pretty sure he's enjoying himself.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, I don't know if you read. I don't know if you read the chat last night. That little four comment string he made involving me and Emmons, but he's definitely enjoying himself. I don't think that's much of a question. Uh, that one caught me off guard a little bit when I pulled it up. I go, oh, okay, okay.
all right.
I'm
So
assuming
yeah,
you had.
that's
I'm assuming you had a similar response to that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
That's
he
what
said,
happens on vacation, man. When you get married, that's what happens.
"Oh, I know."
But
I read it, and I was in a party with Emmons, and I go, I think Corey said a little bit to drink, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Go pull the chat up." I think he's enjoying himself a little bit on vacation.
yeah,
Oh my
but
days!
then you get into the divisional round, and I mean the game with Pook and Vicious was definitely a tight one. But they typically have really good games. I mean, even when they were in the same division last cycle, they always had really good games.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot of tight finishes. Um, of course, Grid and his first AMLoB playoff experience
and the Titans'
came out,
first
and I
playoff
mean,
AMLoB experience at that.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, he did something that we hadn't seen since we started the league. Gave the Titans their first playoff experience, his first
Hadn't
place
seen
playoff experience in the league.
in this
And
this cycle.
yeah, yeah, this cycle, and
He
then
made a couple late appearances last cycle, but it was good to see him back there.
yeah. So I mean, and I mean it was he had the tough task of playing Tyler in that division round. And I mean, even though that team isn't necessarily great, we know how good of a user Tyler is. So that's always a tough matchup for anybody that's going against him. Is always going to be a tough game.
And that team's also
Even the
built to just be what he wants it to be,
yeah,
if that
I
makes
mean, even
sense.
Super Bowl
It's
was even it ended 20-6, but that game was a lot closer than that final indicated. So,
oh yeah,
um,
oh
so I
for
mean,
sure.
he definitely has he definitely has done something really really good in the playoffs with that Broncos team. I mean, especially considering where they were, what, 4 seasons ago.
Yeah, yeah. Where he's brought that team has been beyond impressive, and I think that goes to say without a shadow of a that yeah I did okay. That goes to say without a shadow of a doubt, and he very much deserved and worked his way to that Super Bowl appearance, and proud of the lad that he almost got it. Maybe this year, he's gonna have the advantage of Corey. I don't think Corey comes back until a couple weeks into the season. I don't think, and I don't
Yeah.
think he has. I'll text her in
Well,
a
I think
second.
Corey said that he might be back for the draft, so I think he'll be back probably Wednesday.
Oh, okay,
At least that's what he said.
okay. Well, I mean,
So I mean,
if that's the case, then you never know. There might be a chance for that might make it a little bit tougher on him, but I mean, Tyler still is that team's only going to get better. There's still plenty of holes for him to fill, and
yeah,
I think we all
definitely.
know his constant lobbying for Foy Assad. So he's going to go out this season with one goal really and one goal in mind, and it's to end up getting Foy Assad a first team All Pro selection. I would guess that's
Well, I
really
mean,
that Super Bowl might be not that he's not going to be trying to win a Super Bowl, and not that there's not really way too crowded of a OBB selection, but he's I think that's going to be his main goal.
Foyside has been Forsythe has been ridiculously good since his last season in Atlanta. Dude has been on another level since then.
He
I
really,
mean, I think he's averaged 10 plus picks since that season. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
um,
If there's anybody that
so I
is going
mean,
to make it with a less than stellar resume, it would be him. Unfortunately,
yeah,
unfortunately, he's competing with people that have about as perfect of a resume as you could ask for, and that's kind of the one area he's going to struggle to overcome with is overcoming that resume. But hey, he's got one more season to do it, and I think that's going to be Tyler's main goal if anything that he's expressed sticks. But
yeah. I mean, it's it's tough. The off ball backer is really tough. Just like you said, simply because there's so many guys that do a lot of different things.
yeah,
Forsythe, for what it's worth, as great as he is, getting those user picks, he
that
doesn't
the run
necessarily
production.
excel. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily excel at the other areas. Forcing fumbles and tackles for loss, stuff like that. And those are
With
big parts about being a Mike linebacker too,
yeah,
especially when guys have comparable pick numbers simply because they've had the same production across the cycle.
hmm yeah, you
So
know, and and kind of in the exact opposite of a coin, you have a guy like Dylan Moses who's great run production, gets sack production to make up for some of the losses stuff too, but doesn't have the interception numbers, and it's kind of the same flip of the coin where you have a guy that's good in one aspect but not great in another, and it's kind of
yeah,
that not completely well-rounded resume is I think what's going to hold guys like both of them back from being first, or in Moses' case, probably second team, because it's just that well-rounded production is kind of paramount at off-ball backer, given that guys have users and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And my
But
and I kind of wanted to say I kind of want to float an idea while we are on here, because I know it's kind of a thing in terms of where to put sub linebackers that are guys that have mostly accrued stats as a sub linebacker. My thought process kind of through the whole thing, and I want to float it on this, is
oh, oh,
not
I'm
allowing
sorry, Katie just.
KD just.
I think that might have done it. Okay. Oh, okay. He's grabbing the Achilles.
Oh, did KD just go down?
Yep.
Oh shit. Oh shit. Well,
Well,
they had to make
yeah.
it out of
So
game
continue.
5. Um, what I was saying is my thought process is having more of an emphasis on them as the DB flex rather than either of the two alternative positions, because that's kind of the role they play on teams anyways. Whereas, because I know that's kind of been a thing up for debate of whether to consider them as more towards off-ball backers or to consider them more towards safeties or what. I think maybe the DB flex might be a good spot for them.
Well, what we
But
did was we put an individual sub linebacker slide.
oh,
So
y'all did? I must have missed
yeah,
that. I must have
yeah.
missed
So
that.
yeah, it's a sub linebacker slot on there. So
Oh, okay.
specifically for sub linebackers. Um,
So the question is basically Von Bell or Derek Kindred.
yeah. Well,
There's a couple more guys I
yeah.
know.
I,
I'm
yeah. I
playing
was
joking.
scared to say
It's a little more crowded than that. I know.
yeah. So it's tough, but
Although
yeah, the
Derek,
sub linebacker has their own category.
although Kindred, as Pook likes to point out, not having really played sub linebacker over the last few seasons, that's going to kind of hurt his pure sub linebacker resume. But that's neither here nor there. That's it's a discussion for later days. And what's up with KD? I don't have the game on right now. Are they still looking at him or?
Yeah, they just took him back to the locker room.
Okay.
That doesn't look good though. It looks like similar. You know how they say whenever somebody's Achilles goes, it looks like somebody kicked them in the calf. They feel
Oh
like
yeah.
somebody just kicked them in the calf.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. So
Someone
yeah,
either
it's not
kicked
a
someone either kicked him or took a knife and just rammed it right into the back of their leg.
yeah. He tried to back a guy down and he
Yeah, that's
planted
better.
his foot and then it went. But
Yes.
we'll see what happens. Anyways, um, yeah. So I mean, uh, sub linebacker has their own thing. I mean, off ball backer is going to be always be tough.
Yeah.
Cornerback spot is going to be tough. I think safeties are pretty set.
Cornerback, I think
Um,
it's going to be tough from a standpoint of I think that there's probably 6 or 7 guys that are pretty set, but it's just going to be choosing
yeah,
between like who's going to be at what spot out of the 4 corner spots and then the 4 and second team, and is someone going to make a DB flex? And that's what I think is going to be the difficult part.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It's with the I don't know. The defense just seems a lot tougher than the offense does. The offense is a lot of clear cut guys. A
Yeah,
lot of
outside
clear
of
cut
outside of
guys.
like quarterback 2 and quarterback 3, and then the second team
Yeah,
quarterbacks. But like outside of
yeah.
that, the offense is pretty clear cut. Um, I'm gonna let you ramble for a second because I gotta finish heading out, but I will be back in like half a second.
Okay. All good. But yeah, so I mean the offense pretty set, of course. Like I mean, you have your guys that running back, I don't think there's anything that can change that in the last season. Um, especially with guys like Zeke and his numbers, Saquon and his numbers, and of course Leonard Fournette being one of the adding to the long list of running backs that have won MVP in this league. So um, I think those are set. Wide receiver, of course, you have your guys like DJ Moore and Christian Kirk and Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, Titus Butler, um, that are pretty much set at that wide receiver position. Kropog and Evan Ingram, I don't think there's even 2 tight ends that come anywhere close to those two.
Yeah,
Um,
those 2 guys are ridiculous. When you look at like nobody else has even like 2 seasons worth of what those guys have like 3 or 4 seasons of. You know.
yeah, so yeah, that's not happening. So those two are pretty much set. It's just like I mean uh the quarterbacks that's a little bit tougher of a conversation. Simply because there's so many like younger guys that came later in the CFM that, in my opinion, what they've done in these few seasons that they've had is can be considered just as impressive or more
Yeah.
impressive than what we've seen from some of these, because Lamar Jackson had great a couple first seasons and then it just kind of like
Tanked.
tailed and died off.
Yeah. Can you hear me good?
And then of course you have Rosen didn't have like a couple good seasons and just tail off. Rosen just was so inconsistent throughout this cycle. And I mean, and the reason that it wasn't really noticed that much is because the defense is so good. So, the defense kind of masked a lot of those mistakes. Whenever you can turn the ball over and then your defense ends up getting you a pick in a better field position, it's kind of it's a little bit different than that's a little bit different than throwing an interception. Your defense can't force a turnover, and now you're on the field. Now your defense on the field trying to get a stop, and you can't do it. So that's my thing with like Josh Rosen and like Lamar Jackson. And then you got like the
Yeah.
younger
Can you
guys,
hear
like I
me?
was saying, like yeah, I can.
Okay.
Then you have the younger guys like the Weaver has been outside of his rookie season has had amazing efficiency. Um, you have guys like you
LJ
have
Watkins.
guys
I'll say it so you don't have to
like Kogut.
say it.
Yeah,
I'll say it. LJ Watkins.
yeah. Um, I mean, you got that. You got LJ Watson. You got Mel Kogut for Dicey, who's been ridiculously efficient. I think his rookie season he threw 41 touchdowns to 12 picks, and I think this year he might have thrown like 38 touchdowns to like 9. So just and then of course you add in like just the success of the team coupled with those numbers. And I mean, 3 seasons is the minimum that we need. So I mean, if he has another stellar season next year, I think it's kind of hard to take him off that list, especially considering that he has a Super Bowl now.
Yeah, I think he might be
So
too. I think Kogut, if he's got another good year, might end up the second QB. Honestly, just because while it's a really small sample
yeah,
size, those
which is
averages are so hard to ignore.
yeah, which is crazy because when we started the cycle after Lamar Jackson's first couple seasons, we all were basically like we didn't lock him into it, but we were all basically like, yo, it's a really good chance that Lamar's going to end up, on this all pro list somewhere. And now, to be honest, there's a chance he might not even show up depending on what quarterbacks perform in this final season. So I
Yeah.
mean, they're like same
If Herbert goes
same
off
thing with
again, I mean, he's
Rosen.
in a similar boat to where DeWeaver was, with the fact that he'll have 3 out of 4 seasons with 29 plus touchdown passes, and it's
Yeah, and I
that,
mean,
and you got a lot of guys that are
and
kind of falling in that same boat, and I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to be able to buoy buoy back above him.
yeah, and that's the crazy thing. Like I said, after the first couple seasons, we all were pretty much like, yeah, Lamar Jackson is definitely going to be one of the quarterbacks of the cycle. And now there's an argument that to be made that he might not even make the list. And I mean, same thing with Josh Rosen. As the cycle went along, it was just kind of like, yeah, Josh Rosen might be an All-Pro quarterback. And at this point, it just looks like the likelihood isn't really that high for Josh Rosen to make it. Now, Lamar, in my opinion, still has a chance, just pending how this final season goes for a lot of these guys. But Josh Rosen, on the other hand, I think he's kind of on the outside looking in right now. Which I mean, that could also change depending how he finishes, I guess. But yeah, the quarterback position's tough, man. It's tough.
It really is. I mean, and that low end of the wide receiver one spectrum is kind of tight too right now. A lot of guys, it's going to depend on how their final season goes as to where they finish in that. If they make first team or second team, there's I think 3 or 4 guys vying for like one or two spots.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry if I keep cutting in and out. I can't tell if I am or not because I'm getting like 80% of what you say, and so I'm guessing you're probably getting about 80% of what I say. But
It's all good. Yeah, it's sometimes it's going in and out, but I think that's more my headset than anything else. Um, as far as like, but I mean that's just all pro. That's the all pro list. Like I said, the it's going to be tough just um simply because of the fact that everybody and there's a lot of guys, younger guys, that have come in and produced off the bat and continue to produce um, throughout that really have uh, a good chance of making it. Like I know L.J. Watkins has thrown 30 plus. He threw 31 touchdowns rookie season, 38 his second season, 37 last year, along with the fact he has like 8 rushing touchdowns over the course of that span. So then you have, like I said, Emmons, who his efficiency's been crazy. I'm talking about like 30 plus touchdowns with compared to like 12 or less picks. So
I mean, and even then, you got a guy like Kakashi who puts up every offensive number in the world. It's just also including interceptions.
yeah,
But even a guy like Kakashi is still going to hold a spot over a guy like Rosen or a guy like Lamar Jackson because neither one of those guys can consistently put up offensive numbers while Kakashi's been able to.
yeah. So I mean, it's just a lot that goes into those. That's going to make it really tough on a lot of these. Um, but hey, I mean, like I said, we'll see what happens after this final season. It's going to be a lot of moving parts. So
Yeah, there's
um,
really I think last year for the most part there was a lot of stuff set in stone going into that last season, but I think there's
yeah,
a lot of stuff still up in the air there right now. Where all right, I gotta drive. I'm
yeah,
driving by a
I
dock,
think that's the
so
case too.
I'm gonna be quiet for a
Okay,
second because I
it's all
gotta.
good. I
All
could talk for a few minutes, but yeah. So I mean, that's just my opinion. Uh, but one thing that I think we really wanted to talk about, me and Crips, was talk more about the what we saw EA play pertaining to some of the Madden 20 stuff. Um,
yes.
personally, I'm excited, man. I think it's some things that I think they can clean up. It's kind of hard to tell with them showing a lot of the clips and stuff on arcade, and then the the fact that we don't know like the difficulty level they're playing on.
It's usually
It's
pro.
just
It's usually pro.
yeah, it's just a lot of, and depending on what level you're on, it shows. Like playing on pro, you're going to see a lot of dumbing out on those plays from on that by the AI. A lot more dumbing out than you would see on like an all pro, or definitely like on an all Madden. Um, so it's kind of hard to gauge from there. But one thing that I really liked was just how much more fluid the movement was. Um, I think that's one thing that really shined, was just how much more fluid uh, all the movement was. Um, and to be honest, knowing that the in the zone stuff, it's going to take so much to get in there, especially like for like guys like Mahomes, where they're like, yeah, you got to complete 30 plus yard passes, but those are 30 plus yard in the air. Like you can't, like it's not like you throw it to Tyreek Hill on a drag, he takes it 35, 40 yards, and you do that 3 times and he's in the zone. No, he has to have bombed that thing 30 plus yards, you know, 3 plus times in order for something like that to activate. Same thing with like a Juju, where he has the double me, where you know it takes like 3 or 4 30 plus yard receptions to kind of get into that space, but they have to be in air.
I
So
don't
I
know if
mean, in my opinion,
no finish up what you're saying. Sorry.
yeah. And so in my opinion, I mean, if you give up three 30 plus yard passes to one receiver in a single game, you kind of deserve for that to be activated, in my opinion. But and I mean the same thing with like Mahomes, where if you give up 3 or 4 30 plus yard just bombs,
That's kind of on
it,
you for not
I
playing over the top coverage.
exactly. Like I would expect my superstar at some point to be able to get into a space where he can take over like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
My I am kind of proud. It did look a little better from a standpoint of how those would all function than what I kind of thought in my mind going in. I am kind of concerned. Granted, I'm going to be the one on the beneficiary end of it, but it seems like Alvin Kamara is going to be pretty easy to get into the zone because all he needs is like 3 10-yard receptions.
yeah,
That one might be a little easy to do given Madden, but I overall I thought it was I thought it was pretty promising how it kind of looked to play out in the sense that it seems it's not going to be just completely overpowering, save for a couple things. The escape artist does concern me. I will be
yeah,
honest about that. The potential the potential negative impact of escape artists does concern me extensively. And there are a couple of the Deadeye things that, granted, you won't I won't nobody will really know for sure how that'll play out until we see it on something other than pro difficulty. But there were a couple of the Deadeye examples where you could see the game moving AI defenders out of the way in coverage to force open windows to throw into. And I don't know if I'm a
yeah,
huge fan of that, but again, that's not something we're going to be for sure about. That it's not just an AI dumbing out until everybody gets their hands on the game and can kind of test that out. But I'm not
yeah. I think the
I'm not like
superstar
head over
ability is
heels or
what
anything
concerned me.
because there's still lot
Yeah,
of potential being a little bit of a concern through and through until everybody gets their hands
yeah,
on it. But I'm not quite as concerned as I was going into the weekend. Granted, I still want to get my hands on it before I really have a verdict one way or the other, but it looked a little more promising than what I would have expected.
yeah. I mean, I would say I agree. I think for me, I think for me, the more concerning aspect would be the superstar ability simply because they're active on every play.
Yeah, that's kind of
Um,
the Deadeye thing. What was concerning me is if like that's 100% constant thing and you're forcing AIs out of the way.
from what Clint said in whenever they had him sat down, he said, forcing pressure on him kind of takes away the accuracy. I'm guessing they're just saying the perfect accuracy is, if he's on the run and there's not much pressure coming, or he can throw that no look without much penalty. Of course, obviously, if it's a high low pass, then it doesn't count. But as far as like if he has pressure on him, that knocks the accuracy. So I mean, having great guys out there on contain, which from what they've said and what I've heard from people that played at EA Play, um, is a lot more improved. So guys getting outside of that pressure isn't as likely. I think that I think that helps out a lot because they said a lot of the stuff they were talking about was just having counters and balances to each of these abilities. So I think the QB contain is the way to go. It's the way to go when you're going against a guy like Mahomes who has that like escape artist or the no look dead eye, those types of things. So just making sure you're getting pressure on them, I think is going to be the biggest part of it. So I mean, sometimes you might just have to send 5, 6 guys at a time just to at least force the chance that he does get off his rocker a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then my other thing that I'm still kind of concerned, I don't know what to make of it right now, whether to be concerned or maybe there's some type of a miscommunication. But apparently, they did confirm over the weekend that you cannot permanently drop in dev trait. It's only temporary through the course of a season. And I don't know how I quite feel about that because I feel like over the long haul, especially because they didn't, while they specifically said you cannot go down in dev long term, they did not specifically say that you can't go up, which is potentially a concern over the long haul of the course of the season. If you can just get everybody over your team over multiple seasons to superstar or SSX, you know.
Well, how I would think it will work is kind of how we were talking about in chat earlier, where you know the the dev increases aren't permanent either. I think that's more of just of which, to be honest, is about as close to like a performance based improvement system as we can get at the moment with the current state of Madden.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying, in a season that guys can drop, or in the season they can drop or go up in dev, but at the end of the season they regress back to the norm or progress back to where they were, you know, I can rock with that. I think it would be a little bit better if they did have permanent dev loss, but it just took a couple of like really underperforming seasons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, if it's like we were talking about earlier, where like if you have that, like for the temporary, like the dev games are temporary too, which I think is the case. I think that's. I mean, I don't necessarily mind it as much. I don't love it, but I don't mind it either.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like that's what I was saying. I'm not 100% sure what to make of it right now, and I'm kind of just letting it kind of be until someone kind of gets their hands on it and can kind of fully test it out and everything. Because my one concern with it too is if the game drops and you can't go up in dev, and you can go up in dev permanently, but you can't go down, and then communities like what the fuck that they're gonna change it, but that's not the kind of thing you can change and actually change over the course of all your already created CFMs. That's something that could potentially force restarts for leagues and stuff, in which case it might
Yeah,
be a longer term concern if which is why it's just something I'm kind of keeping an eye out on right now, kind of in my own head of like waiting to see something confirmed on it because I don't think it's a good system if you can permanently go up. If the dev raises are as temporary as the decreases and you regress to a mean, it'll work. I don't know if it's the best system, but it'll work for what they're trying to do, I think. But if it's where you can just everybody can go up, you just can't go down. And after 5 seasons, my entire team is superstar dev. I don't know about that one.
I don't think my thing with that is I don't think because kind of like how the game is now, where they only allow a certain number of superstar players be superstars unless they're drafted as superstars. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have that set number that gets it every season. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like SSX is going to be the same thing, where they even if where they wouldn't be able to balance it out if it was permanent dev games.
Yeah, I don't.
So I
Yeah,
think
that's the
if
one thing. The whole like that's why I phrased it as superstar and not SSX because I don't think you're going to be able to dev up to SSX even if dev gains are permanent. I feel like if you have SSX at the draft, you're going to be the only players eligible of gaining SSX. I don't think anybody else is going to be able to, and that's how I think it's going to be, frankly. But I feel like other than that, if you're able to permanently boost dev, it's going to be to get up to superstar, and then you're just kind of going to be stuck there because I don't know if the game's because the game if there's no way for them to decrease devs and they want to stay at a set number of SSX players, I don't think there's going to be any other way for them to implement that without decreasing. SSX, which they've said that they aren't going to do outside of roster updates. So I don't see a way that they
Yeah.
can do that without barring players from going to SSX unless they already have it.
Yeah, like I said, and but see, in like I said, I think that leads me to believe that the dev gains are as temporary as the dev losses.
Mm.
So, um, I mean, and like I said, I don't necessarily love it. I feel like they can come up with a better way to do a performance based, improvement as opposed to that.
Yeah, I
But
agree. Which is why I said I think
but
it'll work for what they're trying to do, but I don't think it's the best thing they could do.
yeah, yeah. So I think because if I think that's dope. Inside of a season, if you're having a stellar rookie season through 7 games, you know, you're telling me now my stellar rookie through 7 games. You're telling me now my stellar rookie through 7 games is getting a dev boost for the rest of the season, or until the next time I have one of the little boss battles or whatever it is. So you're telling me that he can improve X amount through that time. I like that idea. It happens how they do the ratings in real life. So
It does. I think it
guys
more
like
naturally reflects player development that how they do it.
yeah,
And I think that it would allow them to frankly, I think it would allow them to make rookies more like how they actually make them for the rookie classes and not
yeah,
just at this whole and and damn it, get rid of all like the excessive physical upgrades and just make the players from a physical standpoint the same as the actual NFL players are. Like, damn it, don't let me just add 3 speed so easily and just make the guys 90 speed from jump instead of making him 85 and being like, oh, just upgrade him because you can't. I'm
well,
sorry, but I need to get. If anybody has seen me go through and do the math on different positions, I know there's the argument that it's balanced within the draft classes, and that's a valid point, but it is not balanced with the actual NFL. And that is, I think, one of the biggest issues of draft classes right now is because even with like a 6th round pick IRL, they're better than a 6th round pick IRL with quick dev is better than 80% of the auto generated rookies on a year to year basis because of the
yeah,
way that they weight low awareness and low play rec into actual rookie ratings, tandemed with the fact that those 6th round picks have actual NFL physicals and not auto generated physicals. But
yeah.
but that's just my 2 cents on the whole matter that I've expressed way too many times at this point. But
No, and and that's valid. That's valid.
because I
my
just
my
think there
my
should be that
on
much
it.
weight on IRL 6th round picks.
Yeah, my thought is, I from what I'm from I would think they're improving the draft classes. Um, they've taken steps to try to improve it each year. This year, like with more unpredictability as far as like the guys you're drafting when you see stories and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they're making efforts to try to make the draft classes better. I think the reason they don't want to go too crazy with the physicals is because it doesn't. I don't know. I think it's more of a league balance type of thing. You don't want to have a bunch of guys that are just running around here with 90 plus speed when there are slower guys in the league. So it would, because especially with how they do it, where they pull from, older guys that are sitting in free agency. They pull those guys to be able to generate the rookies. So like you're going to have a bunch of 90 plus speed guys running around the league and it's not going to be any 80 plus 80 guys, stuff like that. So I guess it's for, like I said, more for balance purposes. And like I said, they're balanced inside of the draft as far as like just how the positions work. Like, linebackers not necessarily possessing a lot of them possessing that 85 plus speed, but that's also because most of the like tight ends you're seeing aren't going to have more than about 83.
Most of the tight
So
ends you're seeing aren't going to have more than 75.
yeah, so like you're
Let's
talking
be real
about
with it.
guys. Yeah, you're talking about guys that have like 79, 80 speed, and it's just like it balances out. And I mean, same thing with wide receivers and cornerbacks. You don't have like this incredible amount of 90, 92, 93 plus wide receivers running around here, as
Yeah,
opposed
no, and I
to
get it.
like,
I just think from a standpoint of like where if you want it from you want it from a sim from a realism standpoint, the physicals in the draft classes should match up to that, in my opinion. And you can do things with the ratings and stuff if you don't want to make every draft class have 60 awareness all over the place. Like they really showed that this year with the fact that it wasn't uncommon for rookies to have 80 awareness out the draft. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but knock off the skill ratings. You know, don't knock off the physicals as much where you're having, and I get you might maybe want to do it a little bit, kind of like how they had in previous years where, the physicals of drafted players weren't necessarily on level with the actual players, but it was a little closer to it. And this year they kind of turned that down like 3 or 5 notches. But
yeah,
and corner is the worst position out of all of it. I mean, you can still find at least decent physicals receivers in the third round usually, and that is not the case at the cornerback position, unfortunately. Outside of maybe like one every 2 years, there are a couple examples that you can point to, but there's like three, usually 2 or 3 every draft from the receiver standpoint, and I think that's why a lot of teams struggle to field good corners. Is there's usually maybe 4 or 5 from every class that you can put out there on the field outside of being a slot corner. And I think that that's kind of like showed itself more and more as you've gone deeper and deeper into the cycle, because you've got guys that are forced to throw an 86 or 87 speed corner on the boundary against 92, 93 speed receivers. And
yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean,
unfortunately
I can
not a great
understand that.
matchup.
I can understand that. I mean, cornerbacks are always tough, anyways. I mean, if you're talking about comparing to like IRL stuff, they're that's a tough position to find good guys anyway. Most teams don't have really good corners. Most of them have serviceable ones. So,
Oh, for sure.
like I said, I mean, I can see it. Just, I think the reason that it's just that way is just because it balances itself out inside the draft. And I mean, if you're thinking about it, most times by about season 3, season 4, most of the time the guys that you're talking about making the biggest impact anyway are going to be those guys from the rookie class. So if they're balancing each other out, I would assume the reason that they don't change it is because by then everybody should be on the same playing field. So
Yeah. And, I think they've said that they're going to do more with the draft classes this year, and I think a big complaint from a lot of the community has been the imbalance of the draft classes comparison to the actual league. And so my guess is that that will be a big thing they try to focus on to an extent, considering they've said that they want to improve the draft classes. And I think that's really the only big complaint about the draft classes as of now, outside of the fact that there's no randomization to allow for custom classes to be used in online leagues. with anonymity. But
Yeah.
I think those two things, if they, the system they have now, it works. It could just be better. And I think hopefully they go and try and make steps towards addressing that to make it better. But
Yeah.
also, apologies. I think there might be a dog or two that's about to start barking.
It's okay. But yeah, so I mean, that's just my opinion on it. And like I said, I think they're gonna probably do more as far as like getting getting that do more this year as far as getting those guys um to be better physicals coming out of the draft. Like I think that's a major complaint everybody's had. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens
Yes.
there.
Yes, we will.
I mean, I think they said they're gonna release more information about franchise the closer we get to 20 dropping. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's also that to look forward to as well.
Yeah, that's my guess, is that we'll have a lot more of that information coming through in the future. And of course, a lot of it will just be found out once people actually get their hands on the game and can just evaluate it for themselves.
Yeah, getting hands on the game is going to be a big part of everything too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's a few things that we said we got to look into. Of course, with linebackers not being able to make those crazy, with linebackers not being able to make those wild picks, um, but DB still being able to do it. The whole like, do we allow sub linebacker? Do we not? Deal is still on the table. So it's a lot of stuff we got to look into as we get
Yeah,
closer to Madden
closer to the
20.
launch. Yeah, to
Um,
the launch itself. It'll be
yeah.
interesting because
So
they've said there's a lot of smaller niche changes and stuff that they're making. So we'll see how a lot of that plays out once once we can actually get our hands on the game. And I imagine a lot of that people will have gone and looked into by that point, especially the things like the sub linebacker change that they've said that they're making, and especially when it comes to like um, just a lot of the different like the pressure formations and stuff and all that sort of stuff. I'm assuming we'll have a lot more intel on that by the time we actually have our hands on it. But it's one of those things that nobody will know for sure until you have 2 or 3 weeks of people trying to go and break the game, which is exactly what's going to happen when it comes
yeah,
out.
I mean, well, my thing with stuff like that is, I just hope that with these changes and stuff, everybody's been asking for, because this is the same thing that happened with RPM. People wanted more realistic movement from guys. And I mean, RPM wasn't necessarily perfect, but it was a step in the right direction, and people were upset because it made things more difficult.
Yes.
So it's like we're asking for things, and I'm saying we as a Madden community, not like us in particular or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
we are asking for things to create a more simulation football experience, and then when we get them, we don't like them. So
Sorry, my dog started play fighting.
it's all good. So when we get them, we don't necessarily like them, which then EA takes it as, oh, okay, so obviously they don't like this simulation aspect, so they take it out of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and most times not return again. So
Yeah, my thing with that
it's
too, and
just,
you've even heard it from like game devs and stuff that have moved on from EA because of how they run the gaming side of everything, is the fact that
yeah,
they will do that and they'll just pull stuff and they won't even let them try and fix it. They'll just pull it and be like, no, you cannot do this. And It's like, okay,
Yeah.
thank you for really giving me a chance to actually try and make this game better. I'm just going to go work for a company that will. And we've kind of seen that, 2 or 3 times over the last 18 months, and not promising. Not all that promising.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, that's one of the biggest things for me is just looking at that. Just I just hope that it doesn't, that if the game is really, especially if the game is as smooth as what it looks like it can be, like I just hope they don't take a lot of that stuff away.
yeah, that's my hope too, is that a lot of that they'll, and I get it with defensive RPM, that they couldn't fix it in a reasonable amount of time, and so they kind of had to remove it. I get it, but put it back. Work on it, put it back. Don't
Yeah.
just like leave it up in the air and act like it never happened.
Yeah. Well, from what's been said, they they improved on it. And I mean, you can see it in the stream. Like the animations look so much cleaner. Like the running and just the transitions between players just looks so much cleaner. You don't see a lot of that sliding and warping. And I mean, that's just in the clips they shown. Again, we wouldn't know until we get hands on. But from what it seems, even like when you're talking about clips we've seen from years past, the game just looks so much smoother.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. It looks, in general, it looks better, but it's one of those things that, they're showing us they pulled all the bad clips, all the ones
Yeah,
that weren't so smooth. We don't see those until the game drops, and that's what's it's kind of hard to be for sure about, is because we won't see those until it drops, until people get their hands
yeah,
on it for real, and not just in a closed beta or a gameplay demo where they limit the access to try and limit the amount of game breaking things that can happen. And they don't, I still will maintain, EA, and it's kind of obvious that they do this, they don't really bring people out to really try and break the game. They don't.
yeah,
They have quote unquote professional game developers do it, rather than having people who are quote unquote professional game breakers. That's what you need. Those are the people you need to bring in and try and break your game. You don't bring in,
yeah,
when you're building a security system for a high-end tech business, you don't bring in security guards to try and break into your secure storage facility. You bring
no,
in you bring in hackers and former bank robbers and people that have done that for a living, that know how to do that very well. That's why there's a niche little market for it.
yeah.
And
It's a
they bring in the security guards.
yeah. It's I don't know. It's tough. Like I said, we won't know until we actually get hands on. Crazy thing is, like we say that, like the game doesn't come out for 2 more months. Like within the next like month and a week or so, we'll have the EA access. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yep.
the crazy thing. Um, so I mean, we don't have too much longer for the game, and I mean, who knows about like the beta. We don't know who would get that, and the crazy thing is, you can only play with like 4 or 5 teams, which not necessarily sure how that's gonna go over, but I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I don't
that's
know.
what I was saying. Like limiting the amount of like exposure to the game. They can contain it more, so that there's not as much, like they don't have to worry about quite as much variability, because they probably give you 6 pretty either boring or 6 pretty finalized teams. I bet
Yeah,
like I bet you're gonna have one of your options will be someone. You'll have 1 or 2 really boring options that probably will have maybe one X factor player on the team. One of them will be Cleveland. One of them will be New Orleans. Those are and that'll be like maybe one of them will be the Patriots. Maybe. That's about it. You're gonna have three. It's gonna be like those three teams, and then like three randoms. It won't be Kansas City because they don't know what's up with Tyreek Hill. And they don't want to make they're probably not going to want to make a statement by either putting him in or leaving him out because no matter what they do, it will be spoken of. The Rams, I don't know because I feel like with the whole honestly, I feel like with the whole Todd Gurley thing of everything like that, they might just kind of not do the Rams, honestly.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of your teams that they focused on more during the EA Play stuff. I think those might be some of your teams. I think the Browns will be a big one, and I can almost guarantee you it's probably going to be like Browns Kansas City is the cover game for Madden 20.
Yeah, I believe it was like Kansas City. I believe it was like Kansas City, New Orleans. I think the Patriots and maybe the Cardinals.
Oh, okay. Oh, they do have Kansas City. Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised by that, not going to lie.
Yeah.
For the exact reason.
I mean, I'm not with Mahomes being the cover athlete. I mean, I would think.
Yeah, that was kind of
that would be one thing of like.
He's the cover athlete. At the same time, it's like they're kind of in a lose-lose situation by advertising whether or not they think that Tyreek Hill will be in the NFL this season, because that's going to be there will be multiple articles written about it, and I guess we are in the age of any publicity is good publicity, but EA being as honestly, I will still. They are extremely over concerned about their personal image, whether or not a lot of the decisions they make reflect that or not. I think that is genuinely one of the things they are most concerned about, and they're just really bad at going about that. But
yeah,
which is why I think it'll be kind of funny because they're probably going to get a lot of bad press for the whole, especially if they leave him out, it might not be as bad. If they put him in, whew. Oh, that'll be rough. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of different things that go into that.
yeah.
So I mean, it'll be. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, most times they've put guys in the game anyway, especially most times they put these guys in the game anyway. They they're just more inclined to like be ready. They're more willing to take guys out than anything else.
They'd rather put him in and take him out than take him out and have to put him in mid-season. Was I think probably the best way to explain how they usually go about it. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I think we've rambled for quite a little bit at this point about I've definitely done my fair share, but
yeah. Anyways, I think we're gonna bring it to those fellas. We appreciate everybody that was watching. You know, of course, it's towards the end of the cycle, and at the end of the cycle, it's really hard to get like content, especially at this point because we have one more season left, so things aren't necessarily finalized. Like all pro teams, like full divisions for the most part, because there are still some teams that are open. So I mean, it's hard to give even like predictions on next cycle, and then so it's just so as we get closer to Madden 20, we'll pick up more with content, of course. If we have any ideas or anything that we're talking about, then we'll bring that up. And I mean, of course, if any of y'all ever have anything that y'all want us to talk about or want to hear our thoughts about, you can just let us know. We can definitely um, go at that and let you know our thoughts or feelings about certain things. So, but yeah,
For
do you
sure.
have anything else left to go, Crips?
I do not believe I do. It has been good hopping on here tonight. Um, and I hope everybody has a good week. We're just at the start of it, so everybody enjoy your week and make some money, fuck some bitches, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do with your free time, go ahead and do it. Enjoy yourself. Corey,
Yep, draft
whatever.
Wednesday at 8. By the way, people. So remember that draft Wednesday at 8.
Yes, do not forget
So
that.
uh,
That is what the majority of
yes,
you said last time I checked.
yep. So yeah, that's it.
All
I
right.
guess we will catch y'all later. Um, all right, we're out.
Y'all have a good one. Peace.